All right, g'day and how you going, everybody? My name is Wutaii Nostalgia, and I'm the guy that makes all the videos here on this channel, and I'm going to tell you a dark and disturbing story about my past. So when I was 17 years old, I used to do a lot of drugs, and we used to go to drug parties called raves. These were psytrance and EDM parties that had a lot of DJs that would play that type of music, and we all used to meet in groups of 4,000 or 5,000 people and collectively do giant amounts of hallucinogenic drugs together. Well, this was one of those particular days, and I went down there with a group of about 15 or 20 people doing our normal shtick of doing a lot of drugs and dancing and having really no future ahead of us. But this particular time was different because I had done my normal regiment of drugs, if you want to call it that, but I decided to step it up a bit by buying a new drug called Special K. Unfortunately, the purveyors of this particular substance sold me the wrong thing, and I procured cocaine instead. So I decided to do that with the other drugs I had been doing, and whoops, my heart popped like a fucking zit almost and stopped immediately. Who'd have thought? So there I was, struggling to walk up a hill and breathe basically, when I collapsed on the ground in front of a bunch of people, and they rolled me over, and that's basically where I died. Now, I wasn't 100% sure that I died because all of a sudden I was standing up again, and it wasn't until I looked down to see my dead body sitting next to me, laid out on the ground, that I realized, oh shit, I'm dead. I'm outside of my body. The funny thing about it is that really wasn't the most shocking part of it. You get over that part of seeing your dead corpse quite quickly. The shocking part is what happened next, when a giant fucking tunnel to hell materialized out of the sky and tried to pull my soul into it. And I'm going to tell you about that experience now. So apparently when you die, when you're standing next to your corpse or whatever it is, it's kind of like looking through a fishbowl. I saw all these other people around me walking around that were at this party, only they were kind of wispy, almost like the ones that were living were actually ghosts. The best way I can describe it is if you've ever been to one of those aquariums that has the moving walkway in the middle where the sharks can come over the top of you and things like that, it would be the equivalent of looking down at the people and you're in the fish tank now. So while I was sitting there in absolute shock that I was dead, I noticed that I was not drugged up anymore. I was 100% sober. I had never thought more clear in my life, which was funny because this is one of those times I didn't want to think clearly, because I noticed within 30 seconds or so, there was a little black pinhole that had appeared in time-space, if you want to call it that, and it was as black as space itself, and it started getting slightly bigger, exponentially, starting out at a single point and rotating larger and larger and larger, and guess what? Towards me as well. Can you imagine my shock when a big goddamn black hole type thing started coming towards my spirit that was standing over here that had just finished looking at his own dead body. Talk about mind-blowing, but that's really what occurred to me. So I noticed that as this tunnel to hell, if you want to call it that, was approaching me, it started having an audible sound. Now, I didn't have ears because those were in the dead body down there, but it was a terrifying sound of like a groaning, almost like it was grinding through time-space itself to come and take my spirit into the netherworld. I'm assuming because of the terror that was being felt behind it, this was the gates of hell that was coming for me. So I tried as best as I could to scream bloody murder, but no one heard me around because I was on the other side of the veil, if you want to call it that. And I also tried to run away, much to my chagrin. I couldn't move either. It was almost like it was a hell tractor beam that you're not Jesse Owens, you're weighing out of this, okay? It's like when hell comes for you, that's it. You're fucked. So, get it together before it happens, because otherwise you don't have much time, trust me. So anyway, I'm standing there just flabbergasted that not only I'm dead, but hell's coming for me. Because I didn't think I had fucked up that bad, but apparently I really had. And I started feeling like the wind, if you want to call it. It's not even it's a terrifying feeling. It's like your soul is being sheared into this thing. Not all at once, just like, ugh. And of course, the only thing I can think of in my mind is, ah! Because that's fucking the kind, it's like your hair's on fire. You want to get away from it as fast as you can. And of course you can't. So you're like trying to audibly scream, but no one around you can hear you because you're dead, right? So it's a really fucking terrifying experience. That and the sound coupled with it and the actual feel of a pole sucking you in is what you're feeling. And it's almost like the most terrifying thing that you've ever felt in your entire life. So as I'm sitting here being sucked into hell in absolute sheer terror, I decided, you know what? I'm probably going to pray to Jesus. How's that sound? Because you know what? I went to a Lutheran school and I remembered what they talked about when you go to hell, and this kind of matched up with it. Wasn't 100% perfect, but you know what? 75% is good enough for me. So I started praying absolutely profusely. Jesus help me. And the thing is, it didn't come right away. I prayed and prayed harder and then prayed like your hands are going to crunch each other and you're going to start dripping blood from your teeth from fear. And then that's when it comes. And the best way I can describe it is probably this was done to give me some kind of push in the correct direction maybe. But after I prayed to Jesus and all this type of stuff, it did stop. It did stop. And I was spewed back into the corpse that was there on the ground, if you want to call it that for lack of a better term. But that's not the most fucked up part. All that I told you is not the most fucked up part. What I'm going to tell you is the most fucked up part. So the most fucked up part about this whole thing is when I was transitioning back from dying to going to hell, back into my corpse, I was allowed to see a rhythm of evil, if you want to call it that people get into that is being created by the devil or demons. I'm not 100% sure, but these electronic towers that had fucking the DJ booths in them had this green strobe light, I noticed. And the green strobe light was going along with what fucked up shit people were doing. It was almost fueling their fucking sin or whatever they were doing, if you want to call it that. But before I got into my body, all time stopped for a split second. And the eye of the devil or fucking whatever it was looked directly fucking at me and was like angry as shit that I wasn't in the tunnel going to hell. And then I was spewed back into my corpse and I was alive again. And when I mean I was alive, I was like, oh, like what the fuck? And there were people around me, but there was a horrible sadness that I had. It wasn't just the severe pain in my chest that I actually ended up going to the emergency room directly after this event. I had to be driven 15 miles to get to an ER. And they were like, if you didn't get here sooner, you'd be dead. I'm like, yeah, I already fucking was, but let's get this going. But out of the 15 or 20 people that I had went with to the rave, guess how many people came to see if I even lived? 2. One friend who was a girl, and she's now dead. And another friend who got horribly fucked over in his life, and he ended up moving away. The 2 people that had the worst shit happen to him in life were the only ones to give a fuck about me out of 20 goddamn people if I even lived or fucking died. That was the worst part of all of it. That's why everything changed. It would have changed one way or another just because of going to hell and seeing that. But the worst part of all was that humans don't give a fuck about anybody else except themselves, it seems. I've seen it so many times. And even when you're about to die, people could give a fuck less in some capacity. And it's absolutely horrifying to think that. But it's so true. No matter how close you think you are with people, you never know anything about a person until after you cross and die. And when you die, you start seeing the truth about these relationships. And it's black and white, clear as fucking crystal.
It's all there, black and white, clear as crystal.
And most people never get to see that. Most people will never, ever experience anything that I have told you ever until the day they die when they're elderly or something fucked up happens to them. 99% of the world will never have that experience. The terror, the sadness, the horrifying feelings that I had to fucking go through. And then knowing that you prayed to Jesus and got saved, but you didn't have that special feeling like all these other fucking near-death experience people had where, you know, Jesus talked to them and stuff. I didn't get that. And it's not that I'm mad about it. It's just I didn't get that. I got to see the worst of humanity. What happens when you die, when people turn their back on you at the lowest and worst point of humanity. That's what I got to see. I got to see the horror, the terror, and something more important than any of it at all. I got to see a rhythm that Satan uses to control evil. Everybody wonders, where does evil come from? Why is evil allowed to exist? They keep asking these questions. They ask God all the time. If you're so good, why does evil exist? Evil exists because it's a rhythm. It's a created wavelength, created almost as a hypnotic thing that people cannot control. They cannot help themselves. And they don't know why. I don't know why I do bad shit. You ever hear somebody say that? That's why. It's an uncontrollable rhythm created by Satan. That's what it is. I don't know how else to describe it. That's how he fucking gets people. You don't hear it. You can't see it. And unless you die, you don't know it exists. That's the control mechanism. Everybody wonders, like, how are you controlled spiritually? That's how. It's a wavelength. It's a beat. It's a pulse. I don't know how else to describe it other than that. I went to grad school, so I know scientific terms and stuff like that. And other than pulsating wavelengths, something you would see out of like a pulsar, right? That's the best I can describe. That's what Satan does. There's nothing I can, it's like an emanating evil that just never fucking ceases. And that's what I was able to see through this whole situation. And so to wrap it up, I went to a bunch of drug parties, did a bunch of shit, died of an overdose, came out of my body totally sober, was going to be taken to hell, heard the droning and the fucking terror and the screaming behind all that, prayed to Jesus, was spewed back into my corpse, and got to see a rhythm that Satan uses to control people's evil. That's basically the premise of this entire video. So whatever it is you do, I mean, I assume Jesus is the right way. If you assume different, that's your fucking fight, I guess. That's the way I'm choosing to go. If you choose a different path, I'm not going to be mad at you. But this is one of those videos that's like, what happens when someone dies and starts going to the gates of hell, and it's like a real person. It's not somebody that was a teetotaler or somebody that was a fucking mafia boss. It's just a guy who was living that ended up dying that no one gave a fuck about at the time. Okay? And that's what happens. There's no fanfare. It's terrifying to you that it's personally happening to. And I'm assuming when you go to heaven, if that exists and if that's the next stop, I'm assuming it's absolutely brilliant and it happens just to you. But to sit there and think that people all the time give a fuck about you after you die, or that you are bigger and better than you think you are, is totally fucking incorrect. And if you can find a person that you can call a friend, that's a real friend. I'm not talking one of those 20 people and only 2 of them came and the 18 told you to go fuck yourself. I'm talking if you can find one person that is an actual friend, you're doing better than 80 to 90% of the rest of the goddamn planet. And if you're on the right side of the moral situation as far as God's concerned, then you're doing better than 80 or 90% of the rest of the planet. Because let me get this straight to you people. When I came back from seeing that shit and then into my dead body and I rose up again, I was under the impression that most people aren't gonna make it to heaven. That's what the impression I was given. Like, this is kind of just like a soul vacuum cleaner that just comes for a shitload of people. And the going to heaven thing is a more rare event than most people want to admit. I'm sure everybody out there is like, oh, when I die, I'm going to go to heaven and I get to see the grandma, or you just have no thought of it whatsoever. And the actual realities of it is that you're probably going to die. I mean, you're definitely going to die, but you're probably going to that place I was going to. I don't want to mince words here. I'm not going to be like, oh, yeah, you'll be fine. Everything's great. Yeah, just, oh, it's good and you're fine. No, there's probably like an 80% chance that no matter what you do, unless you like literally fucking like beg for forgiveness to God, right, that you're probably going to go there. I don't know how else to describe it. I don't know how else to be more clear than that. There's really no passing go. Once you die, it's too late. I mean, you can pray, but as far as like, from what I've gathered, once you go past like where you're judged, right, there's no like, oh, I meant it this way, or please forget. It's like you don't have a choice. It's just, it is what it is, and it is what it isn't. It's the decisions made for you. You don't get to make the decision once you cross the line. The decision's made for you based on the shit you did here. Now, I don't know if it's like if you live a bad life and kill a bunch of people, or if it's just that you pray to Jesus and that's all you have to do. I still don't know 100% know, okay? I really don't. But what I do know is that when you leave your body and die, whatever, that's the shit that's happening to you. That it's happening. It's not like, oh, I'm going to negotiate my way into heaven. I always had this vision that like when I died, like I would be sitting in this like field. I know this is fucked up, but I just had this vision like when I died, I'd be in this field and like God would be there and and it would be like a rundown. They're like, well, you beat up this little kid. Well, I meant it like this. And you could kind of justify everything back and forth. And you just kind of did that with everything. And then it's like, okay, well, I forgive you and you go to heaven. I don't really think it works that way. What I think it is it's like you die, you leave your body, and it's like, okay, decision time, bitch. Whatever was chosen is what's happening to you. You don't even get to negotiate. You don't even get to talk about it. If you're fucked, you're fucked. And if you're not, then it's good. And that's really the end. Black and white, plain as day, clear as fucking crystal.